Yang Mayong stands silently under the tranquil moonlight at the Righteous Alliance headquarters, gazing at the stars above. His face shows calmness, but his thoughts seem deep. The peaceful night is broken when a familiar voice calls him, addressing him as the Lord of the Alliance. Yang Mayong turns and sees Jiggle approaching him. He feels slightly awkward and admits that being called the Lord of the Alliance feels strange. Jiggle smiles and reminds him how he earned that title after proving himself to many martial artists. He has earned this respect. He encourages Yang Mayong to accept the title, explaining that it is now a part of who he is. Jiggle then changes the topic to something serious. He tells Yang Mayong that someone from the Murong clan has come to meet him. Yang Mayong feels puzzled and curious. He recalls that the Murong clan was destroyed by Heaven Brilliant's demon lord and wonders why they would seek him, as he has no connection to them. Jiggle explains that the visitor insisted on meeting Yang Mayong and said it was urgent. The person also left a strange message that mentions sword ghost, Herculean body, and force technique. The mention of these terms makes Yang Mayong's eyes widen in shock. He feels a sense of urgency in the visitor's request and agrees to the meeting without hesitation. Later, in the quiet of his room, Yang Mayong meets the visitor, a red-haired man who introduces himself as Murong Hui. The man's respectful yet determined demeanor catches Yang Mayong's attention. Murong Hui carefully explains that he has come to ask an important question, even though it might offend Yang Mayong. With measured words, Murong Hui reveals that the swordsmanship Yang Mayong used during his duel strongly resembles the techniques of the sword ghost, a legendary swordsman known as the greatest of his time 2 centuries ago. He questions how someone from the Tang clan could wield techniques of such extraordinary caliber. Yang Mayong keeps a composed expression and responds with his own question. He asks how Murong Hui recognized these techniques and how he could identify the force techniques so accurately. Yang Mayong then asks if Murong Hui has mastered the force technique using the body of a normal human. This question astonishes Murong Hui, and he is left speechless at the remarkable insight of Yang Mayong. He reflects that to recognize the cultivation method at a glance, Yang Mayong must have some kind of connection to the sword ghost. Murong Hui begins to share the history of the sword ghost, revealing a truth that leaves Yang Mayong stunned. He explains that the sword ghost was once a member of the clan and was born as the illegitimate son of the clan's leader. Despite his lineage, he faced years of ridicule and neglect from the family. However, even under such harsh conditions, the sword ghost displayed unmatched talent. He mastered all of the clan's sword techniques before reaching the age of 20, something that had never been seen before. His incredible skills created tension within the clan, disrupting the established line of succession. This brilliance caused jealousy and discord among the clan members. Disillusioned by the constant infighting and the lack of love or support from his family, the sword ghost decided to leave the clan entirely. 10 years after his departure, he rose to fame, earning the title of Sword Ghost, a name that became legendary. In an effort to bring him back, the clan elders sought him out, hoping he would return to his roots. However, he refused their requests and told them that his sword was still incomplete, suggesting that his journey was far from over. Decades passed with no word of him, and many believed his story had come to an end. Eventually, the clan discovered his tomb, marked with the words Sword Ghost's Mausoleum. Beside the grave, they found texts that recorded his unmatched techniques, a treasure trove of his wisdom and skills. Desperate to harness the power left behind by the sword ghost, the clan began cultivating the force technique described in the ancient texts. Yang Mayong questions Murong Hui, asking if they chose to practice the force technique even though attempting it without the Herculean body could lead to death. Murong Hui tightens his fists, and his expression shows both pain and determination. He admits that the force technique placed a heavy strain on his body, pushing him to the brink. Yet despite the dangers, they could not bring themselves to abandon the cultivation. They believe that the sword ghost must have left behind a way to safely overcome its deadly risks. However, before they could uncover the solution, tragedy struck. The Heaven Brilliance Demon Lord attacked them. The Demon Lord did not come for wealth or treasures. Instead, he interrogated and slaughtered the clan members one by one, clearly searching for something. Meanwhile, Heaven Brilliance Demon Lord arrives at the Nangong clan with his sword in hand. Sword King Nangong Jiangxian steps onto the rooftop of his clan's main house. He stands ready to face the menacing Demon Lord. Heaven Brilliance Demon Lord sneers, recalling that in over 10 years of his rampage, the Nangong clan was the only place he failed to destroy. He declares with confidence that this time the outcome will be different. Nangong Jiangxian gazes at his opponent with calm confidence. He remarks on the deep wound the Demon Lord must have carried from his past defeat. Noticing the sword in the hand of the Demon Lord, Nangong points out he must be mad to confront the Sword King with a sword. Heaven Brilliance Demon Lord, unfazed by the comment, acknowledges that his previous loss taught him important lessons about swordsmanship. Over the years, he acquired remarkable martial arts skills preparing for this very confrontation. Sword King Nangong descends gracefully from the rooftop to face his foe on the ground. He questions how the Demon Lord dares to challenge him with only 10 years of sword training. Heaven Brilliant's Demon Lord smirks and reveals that he wants to see whether the techniques of Sword King or those of the Sword Ghost are superior. Nangong Jiangshan, unshaken, tells him to attack. Their clash begins with a thunderous display of power. Waves of immense energy collide, tearing rifts into the space around them, creating a battlefield where only the strongest can prevail. Back at the righteous Heavenly Alliance headquarters, Yeon-myeong reflects deeply on the revelation that Heaven Brilliant's Demon Lord had stolen the Sword Ghost's martial arts. He struggles to understand why someone like the Demon Lord, who was the young leader of the demon sect and had already mastered their ultimate technique, the Heavenly Demon Divine Art, would abandon it. The Sword Ghost's methods were extraordinary, but for the Demon Lord to leave behind the pinnacle of demonic cultivation meant there had to be a significant reason. Mirong Hui interrupts Yeon-myeong's thoughts by repeating his earlier question. He asks if Yeon-myeong has any personal connection to the Sword Ghost. Yeon-myeong answers calmly, saying he has never met the Sword Ghost directly. However, he recalls a memory from his childhood. During a moment when he was being bullied, a phantom sword appeared and protected him. He explains that this strange event might be the only connection he has to the Sword Ghost. Mirong Hui looks baffled, struggling to make sense of Yeon-myeong's story. Yeon-myeong speculates that the phantom sword could have been a martial art left behind by the Sword Ghost, possibly something that responded to him in a moment of danger. Mirong Hui then reminds Yeon-myeong of an important fact. Only those with a Herculean body can master the Sword Ghost's techniques. He looks at Yeon-myeong and asks directly if he possesses such a body. Yeon-myeong explains that he was not born with the Herculean body, a requirement for mastering the Sword Ghost's techniques. Instead, he adapted the techniques to work with the Tang clan's unique cultivation methods. This adjustment made the martial art incomplete, but it allowed him to use it to some extent. He recalls a past battle with the leader of the Black Death Alliance. During that fight, he discovered that the Tang clan's cultivation method could harmonize with the properties of the Force technique. However, this worked only because his martial skills had surpassed the Fire Realm, a level of mastery far beyond ordinary cultivation. For anyone else, trying such a method would be far too dangerous and almost certainly fatal. Mirong Hui, standing in disbelief, admits that his purpose in coming here was to find a way to overcome the Force technique's limitations. Hearing this, Yeon-myeong advises him to abandon his current cultivation method entirely. The Force technique is too dangerous without the right conditions, and continuing with it would lead to certain disaster. Mirong Hui looks disheartened, struggling to respond. He looks conflicted at the harsh reality. Yeon-myeong, meanwhile, reflects on his own journey. In his past life, he knew very little about the Sword Ghost and his legacy. Now in this life, he finds himself uncovering not just the techniques, but also the origins of his master, a connection he never anticipated. The realization fills him with both curiosity and a sense of purpose. A flashback reveals a conversation between Yeon-myeong and his master, the Sword Ghost. His master had once spoken about his life before taking up the sword. He described it as empty and without purpose, which led him to adopt the name Sword Ghost, a name symbolizing someone yet to define themselves. Despite the bond they shared, the Sword Ghost never revealed his real name, not even on his deathbed. Instead, he gave Yeon-myeong the name Yang, a gesture that carried deep meaning but left many questions unanswered. Snapping out of his thoughts, Yeon-myeong looks at Mirong Hui and asks if he knows the Sword Ghost's true name. Mirong Hui hesitates but eventually reveals something surprising. He explains that the Sword Ghost's name, though it might seem like a strange coincidence, was Mirong Yeon-myeong. Hearing this, Yeon-myeong sighs softly before a faint smile appears on his face. The revelation adds another layer to his understanding of his master's legacy, but it also feels strangely fitting. Mirong Hui prepares to leave, deciding to follow Yeon-myeong's advice and abandon the Force technique. However, Yeon-myeong stops him firmly. He declares that they are comrades, both having practiced the same martial arts. He insists that he cannot let Mirong Hui leave. Yeon-myeong points out that Mirong Hui shares the same desire to overcome the Force technique and seek revenge against Heaven Brilliant's Demon Lord. He reminds him that this shared goal is the very reason the alliance was formed. Yeon-myeong then invites Mirong Hui to join the alliance, promising to help him to adapt the martial arts to suit his body. Meanwhile, at the Nangong clan's main house, Nangong Jiangshan lies defeated on the ground, his sword shattered and useless. He has been completely overcome by the Heaven Brilliant's Demon Lord. Nangong Jiangshan struggles to move, his body drained and broken. He lies there knowing that death is near. In his final moments, he regrets allowing the Demon Lord to escape 10 years ago. Heaven Brilliance Demon Lord looks down at him, laughing softly to himself. The Demon Lord reveals that he had held back during their battle. He admits it would have been a waste to end Nangong's life with just his fist technique. He gives a begrudging nod of respect to Nangong, acknowledging his strength. Despite everything, the Sword King had managed to endure this long. Reveling in his victory, the Demon Lord smirks, thinking to himself that with the death of Sword King, the biggest obstacle before him has been removed. He reflects that with this victory, the advent of the demonic world draws closer. The fall of the Nangong clan is swift and complete. In a single night, the clan is wiped out by the Heaven Brilliance Demon Lord. The news spreads quickly, reaching Mount Hua and Mount Jiangnan. It even reaches Wudang and Shaolin, warning all the righteous factions of the growing threat. The news spreads far and wide, sending shockwaves through the martial world. Meanwhile, Jekyll calls out to Yeon-myeong, who is busy training the two minions he recently took under his wing. These two eager individuals are hoping to improve their skills. Yeon-myeong remains laid back, enjoying the simple task of helping them train, until Jekyll interrupts him with shocking news. Yeon-myeong listens in disbelief as Jekyll delivers the startling information, which completely catches him off guard. Later, Yeon-myeong gathers the elders of the Righteous Faction Alliance for an urgent meeting. He informs them that in the span of just a few days, Heaven Brilliance Demon Lord and his army have not only destroyed the Jekyll and Myeong families, but have also wiped out the mighty Nangong family. Yeon-myeong is troubled, knowing that Heaven Brilliance Demon Lord alone cannot have been responsible for such widespread destruction. He asks the elders if there are any other masters who have reached the extreme demon realm. One of the elders present speaks up, sharing what he knows. According to his intelligence, all the masters who have reached the extreme demon realm have been assigned to serve under the three demonic houses. Yeon-myeong, with a skeptical look, asks the elder what the demonic houses are. He explains that the demonic houses are the families created by Heaven Brilliance Demon Lord after overthrowing the existing clans. They include the Gisogu family, the Fusion Liu family, and the Shangxi Hua family. These are families that had voluntarily submitted to the Dark Lord and were reorganized under his rule. The Shangxi Hua family in particular stands out, having two Fire Realm Masters assigned to it. It is likely that they were positioned with Mount Zhongnan and Mount Hua in mind. This means, including the Heaven Brilliance Demon Lord, there are at least 5 Fire Realm Masters working together. One elder shares his opinion, stating that it is unlikely there was any joint attack between these families. He believes the destruction was all carried out by Heaven Brilliance Demon Lord alone. The elder goes on to explain that the Sword King has mastered the mysteries of weight, a technique that makes it impossible for even the most formidable warriors to move when within his domain. The pressure within this domain is overwhelming. However, even without his domain, the Sword King is still the greatest swordsman of this era. A simple joint attack by 5 Fire Realm Masters would not have been enough to defeat him. This leads the elder to conclude that Heaven Brilliance Demon Lord must possess an extraordinary level of martial prowess to have been able to face the Sword King on his own. Yeon-myeong realizes that the situation is far more dire than he had initially thought. The enemy now has 5 Fire Realm Masters, along with the overpowered Heaven Brilliance Demon Lord who has already defeated the Sword King. This might not even be the full extent of their forces. Originally, the plan was to help Kong Tong and Kunlun deal with the demonic sect first, and then combine their strength to take down the Heaven Brilliance Demon Lord. Yeon-myeong wonders if the battle lines against the demonic sect have now solidified. Should they strike at the Dark Lord before things get even worse? But they need to hold out and gather strength if they are to face the Heaven Brilliance Demon Lord head-on. Losing the initiative from the beginning has made everything far more complicated. Yeon-myeong thinks they need to distribute their forces more efficiently, but just as he is deep in thought, a voice interrupts his concentration. He realizes that everyone in the room is waiting for his orders and he cannot show any indecisiveness. Taking a breath, he prepares to speak as the Alliance leader, but before he can finish, someone barges into the room, urgently bringing shocking news. Yeon-myeong is startled when he sees the newcomer. His clothes suggest he is a Taoist from the Kong Tong sect, and the look on his face hints at something serious. The injured man struggles to breathe, his body clearly exhausted. He lets out a heavy sigh, unable to speak clearly. One of the elders in the room questions what he is doing here, especially since the war with the demonic sect should be in full swing. The man looks toward Yeon-myeong and asks if he is the leader of the Righteous Heaven Alliance. Yeon-myeong confirms and tells him to take a moment to catch his breath, urging him to speak slowly. He then asks if something has happened to the Kong Tong and Kunlun sects. With great effort, the man pleads for help, begging Yeon-myeong to save their sect. He explains that both Grandmaster Taehyeo and the demon Immortal Kunlun have fallen victim to an unknown poison. Yeon-myeong's face darkens as he listens, his thoughts racing. He cannot believe things have gone so wrong. He recalls that he had given poison to one of the elders earlier, telling them that it was the killing bird flower, one of the 10 greatest poisons. It was a precaution, knowing that the demonic sect had masters in the fire realm, and they had to be ready for anything. However, Yeon-myeong had warned the elder to keep this secret from the second and fifth elders. The fourth elder got confused, wondering why Yeon-myeong wants to hide this from them. Yeon-myeong explained that although they are quiet for now, he believes the second and fifth elders are plotting something behind his back. Yeon-myeong told the fourth elder that he trusts him to follow his commands because of a promise made, but he cannot say the same for the other elders. He stressed that the poison must never fall into their hands. Yeon-myeong struggles to control his anger, and his poisonous aura begins to leak out uncontrollably. His intense killing intent fills the room, and waves of energy ripple through the space. The Taoist man can barely comprehend how a human can exude such overwhelming power. Snaky manifests itself, speaking to Yeon-myeong. It warns him that his killing intent is so strong that if it continues, it might suffocate everyone in the room. Snaky suggests that Yeon-myeong tone it down a bit. It then calmly tells him that if the Taoist and his people had come to cause trouble, they wouldn't be asking for help, they would be hurling insults instead. Snaky advises Yeon-myeong to first listen to the full story before jumping to conclusions. Yeon-myeong takes a deep breath and apologizes. He asks the Taoist to explain the situation in detail. The Taoist, clearly nervous from the sudden shift in Yeon-myeong's demeanor, begins to speak. He explains that the Tianjin Mountains are known for their rugged terrain, making them a prime place for ambushes. The Tang family was assigned to guard the rear of the forces, but they lost contact with them. When they went to check, they found the Tang forces completely wiped out. The Taoist suspects that the attack came from someone at the Fire Realm, as only someone with that level of power could have wiped out the Tang forces so quickly and efficiently. Yeon-myeong tries hard to control his emotions. Snaky reminds him to stay composed and listen to the full story. Yeon-myeong tightens his fist as he still feels unconvinced. He asks the Taoist about the Sword Immortal and Demon Immortal being poisoned. The Taoist, his voice trembling slightly, continues his tale. He tells that after the forces of Tang family were completely wiped out, the demonic sect launched their attack. That left and right envoys, both masters from the extreme demon realm and trusted aides to the demonic sect leader, stepped forward to fight. On their side, Grandmaster Tacheon and the Kunlun Demon Immortal personally joined the battle. The Taoist explains that the clash between the two sides was intense. For a time, it seemed evenly matched. However, thanks to the demon's subduing sword technique of Grandmaster Tacheon, they were slowly gaining the upper hand by pushing back the demonic energy. But then an unexpected variable happened. Yeon-myeong asks what this unexpected variable was. The Taoist reveals that, in the middle of the fierce battle between the Flowering State and Extreme Demon Masters, a new figure appeared. This person called himself the Poison Demon. He was the one who poisoned both Grandmaster Tacheon and the Kunlun Demon Immortal. Earlier, shortly before the full-scale war between Kunlun, the joint sect, and the demonic cult. In an underground facility of the heavenly demon cult, Tang Munchan struggles, his body tied to chains and wrapped tightly in black cloth, leaving only his eyes exposed. He wonders how he ended up in this situation. He thought he was simply going to get his arm treated, but now he is helpless. Munchan curses under his breath, frustrated. He recalls the agreement made with his grandfather and the demonic cult. He hopes they aren't planning something underhanded. Suddenly, he is startled when a mysterious woman approaches. The woman introduces herself as Bak Soyeon, the demon healer. She asks if he's the Tang family kid who wanted his arm healed, and after a brief moment remembers his name, Munchan. Munchan, so surprised, questions her about being the famous demon healer. He had expected someone older, not a young woman like her. Bak Soyeon moves closer, lightly touching his arm. She teases him, asking if he doesn't trust her. She assures him that she will take good care of him. She examines his arm, noting that his veins are in terrible condition. She explains that most conventional healing methods won't work on him. Bak Soyeon asks Munchan if he angered the person responsible for his injuries. Munchan recalls Yeon-myeong, his words, and what he has done to him. His anger boils over, and he curses Yeon-myeong for taking what was rightfully his. He vows to reclaim his position and get his arm back, no matter what. However, Bak Soyeon interrupts his thoughts, telling him that his arm is beyond saving. She suggests that she cut it off to prevent any further complications, assuring him that it won't hurt. She explains that while she could reconnect his veins and pathways, his aptitude for martial arts is too low to make the repair worthwhile. She believes that cutting off the arm will actually make him stronger in the long run. Munchan struggles with his emotions, tears filling his eyes. He feels devastated by the thought of losing his arm after everything he's gone through. He asks Bak Soyeon if there's truly no other way. Bak Soyeon responds that there is one alternative. She tells him that if he learns demonic arts, he could regain a normal arm and improve his aptitude, although it comes with its own risks. Munchan's eyes widen in shock as he processes the possibility of learning demonic arts. The thought of someone from the righteous Tang clan like him engaging in such practices seems almost unthinkable. His internal conflict rages as he asks, stammering, if it's really true that learning demonic arts could heal his arm. Sacheon confirms the confident nod, but her tone shifts slightly as she adds a warning. She explains that it's not just any demonic art, it's the immortal demonic art, a powerful technique that could grant him an incredible regenerative ability. If mastered, the art would allow him to regrow even if his head were severed, making it possible for him to heal his arm and significantly boost his physical aptitude. She then lifts his chin, her eyes locking onto his as she continues, but she makes it clear that this art isn't accessible to just anyone within the cult. Despite the fact that he might have taken out 2 experts using 10 poisons as payment, that alone isn't enough to earn the right to learn the immortal demonic art. Munchan, his mind consumed by desperation and a burning desire for strength, asks Sacheon what he must do. She gives him a cold, unwavering look and tells him the truth he doesn't want to hear. To truly gain the power of the immortal demonic art, he must sever all ties with the Tang clan. Munchan tells her that they have already left behind Tang clan. She explains that he must sever all ties with the Tang clan, including his father and grandfather. The weight of her words hangs heavily in the air. Suddenly, as if to reinforce her words, one of demonic cults cuts the head of his grandfather outside and the severed head of his grandfather falls to the ground. Sacheon continues with a calm voice, explaining that the immortal demonic art is a top-tier secret martial art, even within the demonic cult. To ensure that nothing could influence his decision, she stresses that Munchan must completely sever his ties to his past, including his family. She offers him a choice. If he wants, she can send him back to his family right now, allowing him to return to his old life. But the decision is his. Munchan stands in stunned silence for a moment, torn between his sense of loyalty and his thirst for revenge. His mind races back to the pain and suffering he's endured, all driven by a desire for revenge against Yeon-myeong. The thought of regaining his strength and becoming powerful enough to defeat his enemies pulls him further into the demonic cult's web. With a defiant glint in his eyes, Munchan finally declares that he has already abandoned the Tang clan's name. He vows that if sacrificing his family is the price for power, then he will gladly pay it. He tells Sacheon without hesitation that he will do it gladly. In present, after his battle with Kunlun and Taehyeo, Munchan is in one of the battle camps of the demonic cult. He looks at his arm, now cut in half, and feels frustrated. The energy-imbued attack he received from Taehyeo is slowing down his healing. Normally, he would have already healed and been back on the battlefield. However, the pain from his injuries is too great. Without taking a special pill to suppress the pain, it would drive him insane. He thinks back to how he used the blood from his severed arm to poison several Fire Realm masters. He is proud of that, but he is still upset that he could not do more damage. Munchan clenches his teeth, feeling the need to grow stronger. He knows that until he kills Tang Yeon-myeong, he will never feel satisfied. His eyes burn with anger, and he is determined to master the immortal demonic art. He pledges to use it to take revenge on Tang Yeon-myeong for the humiliation he caused. Earlier, Sacheon approaches Munchan, who is still handcuffed and has a collar around his neck, lying on the ground. She tells him that his arm is fully healed. She mentions that who would have thought he would have talent for demonic arts. She adds that the cult master didn't give him permission to learn the immortal demonic art for no reason. Munchan is surprised, reflecting that he never imagined such a martial art could exist. This is the immortal demonic art. Sacheon tells him that from now on, she will be feeding him poison. She explains that even if it feels like he is dying, he won't actually die. By constantly being poisoned and regenerating, his body will slowly be changed to take on properties similar to poison. She encourages him to keep going until he becomes immortal poison master. In the present, Munchan takes the pill, his face twisting in disgust. Later, prisoners from the battle are brought to him. His subordinate asks what should be done with them. Munchan calmly says that the Joint Sect and Kunlun Sect are doomed to be destroyed anyway. He questions where the prisoners would even go if they were released. His words make his own subordinate feel terrified. Munchan orders him to kill them all, leaving no hope for anyone who stands against them. Meanwhile, those who survived the battle are running for their lives. 2 men are carrying Kunlun and Taehyeo. Kunlun tells them to run for their lives because if they are caught, it will be the end for them. The demonic forces keep chasing them. Kenso, who is carrying Taehyeo, says that they are sticking to them like glue. At this rate, they will be caught. Kenso reflects on how the so-called Poison Master has turned the tide of the battle. He hopes that the messenger they sent to Sichuan is not late. Suddenly, he notices a figure appear up ahead. He says someone is ahead, but before anyone can react, the figure vanishes. Kenso stops in his tracks. The man carrying Kunlun asks why he has stopped when the enemy is right on their heels. The third man with them announces that he will buy them some time. He shouts for Hyunso and the Kunlun Taoist to keep running. Tears well up in Hyunso's eyes as he looks at the man who is about to sacrifice himself for them. Just then, Yeon-myeong swoops past Hyunso, greeting him with "It's been a while." Hyunso can't believe what he is seeing. Yeon-myeong's dagger glows like an otherworldly sword. In the next moment, he stands just before the people chasing them. Hyunso realizes that the reinforcements they sent for have finally arrived. And that was it from today's video. I hope that you liked today's video, and if you did, hit that like button as today's like goal is 1,500 likes. Comment next part down below to see what happens next. Also, consider subscribing with the notification bell on to get notified as soon as a new video drops onto the channel. You can also join the channel to support me financially and watch videos before public release. I'll meet you in the next video. Until then, thanks for watching.